Hello, ladies, gentlemen, gays, and theys. Welcome to the Blockcast. This is episode, I can't even count that high. I think 5 now. That's exciting. We've done a lot. If you have actually rated the podcast, I want to say thank you so much, because I'm literally learning how to do this podcast shit as we're doing it. And I looked at the rankings. The stonks are through the roof. 5 stars. That's crazy, guys. Really appreciative of that. So I want to say thank you. Also, Substack, people are actually giving me money. Thank you so much for that, because there is not much you get out of it besides more of everything else you get for free, and you're just supporting my life. So I really appreciate that too. But nonetheless, this episode, I need you to lock in, put your seatbelt on, get the snacks, have a seat. Matter of fact, actually, stand up and stretch first, then have a seat, because I need your blood to be flowing well so you can stick with me here, because I need to double, triple down on something that I was already talking about on my Instagram, and something that a lot of the girls were mad at me about, which is twerking not being a sexual thing. Okay, we need to have a longer conversation about that, because it's actually very important to me. And also about Megan Thee Stallion being cheated on by, I almost called him Chad. That is how irrelevant that man is to me in my life. But Klay Thompson, I have a lot of takes about that too, some of which were spicy and made people really uncomfortable. We'll get to that later. Let's start with the throwing of ass, okay? Because I am someone that has twerked in many a context, okay? First of all, we can start with my twerking career starting at the ripe age of 10. And when I say that to some people that don't understand it culturally, they'd be like, oh my God, you were twerking when you were 10 years old. Where were your parents? That's so bad. But what if I told you, I was just twerking to have fun with my cousins in our house, and it was totally normal and acceptable and fine, and we just went on YouTube and typed twerk music, and then Travis Porter came up, and then we were learning to twerk as a bunch of tweens, and it wasn't weird and it wasn't sexual, and nothing about it was gross. The only thing about it that's gross is the way that people over-sexualize what is literally just a dance. Isn't that a wild concept, that it's actually just a dance move, a cultural dance move that was relevant to me, a Black child? But that was where it all started. And then of course at parties and shit, I would twerk. What really gets me about people saying that twerking is sexual is the fact that if you go to a party, this is many of the parties I've been to, you will see people twerking, women twerking on other women. And they're not lesbians. I have seen lesbians twerking on each other. Okay, happy lesbian visibility week. Maybe it's over. Maybe that was last week. I don't know. But still, in a lot of contexts, I've pulled up to the party and I see girls twerking on their other homegirls just because it's fun and it's safer than twerking on a man, because if you twerk on a man, he is going to ruin it and assume that it's sexual and take it sexually and want to fuck you. And that is not actually the goal. The goal is just to have a good time. The goal is just to have fun. So girls will be twerking on other girls. I have both been the thrower, I've been the catcher. Okay, I've played all the positions on the field at the damn parties, and there was never men involved. The only times I've actually twerked on men at parties were if I was at a party with my significant other that was a man. Outside of that, every time I recall, because I started this discourse, I started going through it in my brain, and every time I remember throwing ass at the party and I wasn't with my man, I was throwing ass on the homie. It's a very much friend thing to do that's not sexual. I don't want to fuck all my homies, and me and my homies don't have a thing for each other afterwards. It's just that we like to have fun, and a lot of people don't get that, and I think it's because they're outside the club. That's what the real problem is that people are trying to speak on shit that isn't actually a deep part of their culture, so they don't understand it. Just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it's something for you to dictate and be scared of. It just means that you weren't invited to the cookout, and that's really sad. That's really unfortunate, but it's not always a sexual thing. And I can especially say that because I literally used to be a sex worker too, and so I would be in the strip club, I would be working, and I would be twerking in that context, and I can tell you it is very much very different from the twerking that you would do at a party. It can exist in different contexts, different ways, depending on why we're doing it, who we're doing it for, and even literally what it looks like. So I just had to say my extra piece about that. But that brings me to the whole topic of feminism and how the things that women get to enjoy get really twisted up and manipulated under patriarchy into something bad and something taboo and something that women can't enjoy anymore. What I was just describing, women and femmes are having fun twerking on each other and it's a safe and a fun thing that isn't sexual, it just turns into a sexualized thing by men that don't know how to have fun, by men that don't know how to do shit besides control somebody else and want to fuck them. Like, that is the issue right there, not the dance move itself, but the man imposing his power in the situation. And it actually made me think of how, like, my homie actually wrote an entire dissertation on this, like no bullshit, dead ass. She wrote her dissertation on this. Her name is Leisha Gonzalez. And when I was at UT, I was actually in this org that was called Reggaeton Dance Club, RDC. And I love this org so much with my whole heart because I found it when I was like not really in the best space and place. I was not doing good. I was like in a fucking sorority at the time, not non-binary in a sorority, by the way. I already knew that about myself at that time. I was just so desperate for friends that I was willing to like be compulsively cis so that I could have homies, and it wasn't really working out for me. There was a lot of other shit going wrong in my life, but I was able to go to this reggaeton dance club and connect with other people through dance, and ass was fully being thrown. Like we would start the club every day with like a twerk circle, but we were also building community with one another. We were always talking about mental health, checking in with each other about how we were doing. We were using dance as a tool to help ourselves mentally feel better. And that shit is like so real, because if you think about where reggaeton comes from, this is all like what she talks about in her thesis. She talks about the history of reggaeton, the mental health impact of it all, the community impact of it all, and where it comes from in like Puerto Rico and in the Caribbean in general is from like enslaved people from Africa creating new music as Afro-Latinos, as they're mixing with the indigenous people there, and creating new dances as they're mixing with different people from different regions of Africa and the indigenous people in the Americas. Like, they created the reggaeton as a way to bond with each other. And sure, perreo, it can fully be freaked out and sexual sometimes, but it wasn't when it was in that context, when it was in the context of me enjoying a dance club that was founded by someone that was really passionate about mental health and community building, full of other people that were really passionate about just bonding with each other. We were maybe doing a kind of sexualized dance that can super be freaked out if we're actually at the club. But no, we're in the dance hall at school, and like we would literally be doing perreo like in the main block of our campus. And there was like, that's like one of my peak experiences from college, is being in that dance club, being able to do perreo on campus and like normalize it and play that music and do those dances where it's like, some people be like, oh, that's supposed to be taboo, that's supposed to be taboo. Well, what if I told you we were actually just a dance club and we were actually just having fun, and there's nothing that had to be taboo about it because we're not ashamed of our culture and we're not ashamed of the ways that we engage in like different forms of movement to heal. Like, movement is literally medicine. Like, we were being healthy, we were having fun. And I think part of the problem with a lot of people today is that we don't like allow ourselves to just move our body how we please in a way that makes us feel good, because we have these stupid rules like, oh, well, if I'm twerking, it's too sexualized and I'm not gonna be like as valuable because I'm doing thought shit, or if I'm doing perreo, like that's freaky. Like, or you could just move your body in a way you like, and I promise you would feel so good. Like, again, movement is medicine. So I love Leisha for that experience, and her dissertation is literally free on the internet. You can go read it. But that also makes me think of like how when I graduate, it's grad season right now, by the way. So shout out to all the grads. Congratulations. I'm so proud of you. That shit is horrible. College is not only a scam, and I'm not saying this because you don't learn valuable skills. I'm saying this because you shouldn't have to pay tens of thousands of dollars and go into lifelong debt to have skills. But it's also so fucking hard. So if you're making it through college, especially if you're like me and you're neurodivergent and you're making it through college, good God, girl, good for you. I'm so proud of you. Nobody can ever take that away from you. Get your degree tattooed as a tramp stamp, because like it needs to be with you forever. But whenever I graduated, I was so geeked about it. I made a video. Sinners had just came out too, and I was so obsessed with it. It was like my hyperfixation at the time. I made a video of me twerking on like my campus, on UT campus. UT is huge. Like there's like 50,000 something students. I made a video of me cap and gown twerking on the ground. And I made a caption that was talking about how like, by like the white ancestors are rolling in their grave or something. I don't even remember what the caption was, but I was just talking about the fact that like I get to twerk on a campus that didn't even allow people that looked like me to go there like 50 plus years ago. Like only in recent history was every single college and school at that university open to people like me. Only in recent history past that were people that looked like me even allowed to like sleep on the campus in the dorms, because that happened way after the campus was even desegregated as a whole. And now I have a degree from there and I can freely shake my ass on the campus. Like, to me, I'm sorry, that is like one of the most fun ways that I can express my freedom. That's really what it's about. Freedom of expression, freedom of movement, sovereignty. Like, you cannot tell me that something about my degree was lessened because I was twerking on that campus. Yet in the comments, there were so many people saying like, clearly you didn't learn anything. Clearly they're just giving degrees to anybody. This is so dishonorable. They shouldn't have given you that degree. Even other Black people saying like, I should know better than to be acting like that though. Like, I should have some decorum. Whole time I'm just sitting there, and maybe it's the autism, maybe it's me being too autistic to like take other people's social constructs seriously, but I'm just sitting there thinking like, and what the hell does me twerking on the flow have to do with my degree? Like, my bachelor's of science is still sciencing. I still put in all of those hours to obtain my degree. Nothing about that changed because I'm twerking on the floor. Everybody just has this weird mitote, that's what we call it, okay? This weird web of lies and social constructs created in their head that's keeping them from having a good time. Meanwhile, me, girl, I'm finna turn up. I know I'm still brilliant nonetheless. I'm gonna keep throwing this ass, okay? It's very important to me. It's very fun to me. It's one of my favorite stems to do so. And like, what I also wanted to talk about too was that I used to be so like shameful about it, shameful about liking to twerk, shameful about even being a sex worker. Like, I've come a long way to be able to be like, yeah, I used to be a stripper, and what about it? Especially knowing that like I have this career working with children, doing youth work. Youth work is so important to me. And as a matter of fact, little lore drop for you guys, I used to have beef with this little lady that we know called Pekka.
Bombastic side eye, criminal offensive side eye. Do you understand?
Oh, okay, that was a long ass sound, but nonetheless, like, I used to have beef with this girl, and when we were having our internet beef, this was a long time ago, okay? I was 18, baby brain, prefrontal cortex, not really telling me not to engage in shit like internet drama. And I'm trying to make these points. My points are good. She has her like Finsta page, which, yes, I will still take ownership of the fact that that Finsta page is private to this day, because it used to be public, but then I was pointing out somebody's inconsistencies, racism, and bullying on the page, and now it's private. All of these years later, I feel like I won a little bit. We can take the dub for that one. But she like made these posts talking about how like, I can't believe she talks about how she wants to work with kids, blah, blah, blah. And they don't even like, they're a stripper. I don't know how they would want to work with kids in the future. They're a stripper. And I like took that shit to heart, and I felt really bad. And I started thinking like, oh my God, like I'm not going to have a future with kids. Actually, like I needed to think this more through, because at the time, like my social media presence, I had this old like long lost account that was banned off TikTok. But when I first started blowing up on TikTok, I would post about stripper life all the time, because I've just always made lifestyle content, right? So when my lifestyle was being a stripper, the internet knew about it. And so she used that to try and get under my skin, and it actually really worked. I was like, damn, like I might not be able to get hired as a teacher. I might not be able to have a career where I get to serve children in the way that I want to, because I'm doing this sex work right now. And that is like, actually, now that I can like fully claim it, own it, and not feel as much shame about it, the most evil shit in the world, in my opinion. Not just that she said it, but that I believed it, that so many people believe that. Because if you think about it, sex work is really just like work. Like work is in the title, right? Because it's something that people are doing for money. Just like any other something that people are doing for money, objectively speaking. It's just that, just like me twerking on campus in a cap and gown, people have all of these like moral things tied up in it, to where they assume that if somebody does sex work, then they're automatically immoral, right? Which I can understand somebody jumping to that conclusion because you have to do some pretty like risky stuff to be engaged in sex work. But at the end of the day, like you can have any type of morals and any type of job. Even in the jobs I've had working with care, like in childcare, I've met some people who are like Trump supporters fully through and through, but they serve Latino children. Trump supporters voting for him while he's saying that Latinos are bringing rape into the country and then giving autistic Latinos like autism therapy. I've worked with people whose morals are fucked up like that, and they weren't sex workers, right? But we just put all of this blame onto a certain group of people that also are some of the most vulnerable, some of the most impoverished, and that's why they end up doing the work that they do. Like, I didn't do sex work just because I woke up one day and was like, you know what, I really, really, really want to be a stripper. I really think it's just so cool, and that's going to be the life for me. No, I was a stripper because I had a home that I did not feel safe at, that I had the option of living at during college, but when you're fighting with your parents every single day and your siblings, it doesn't really feel like the type of environment where you could be a successful student. So I was super motivated to get out of that environment and motivated to do it as fast as possible when I don't have any type of financial assistance from my parents. I hardly have enough scholarships to cover what I need for school. I did use scholarships to pay for as much as my rent as I could, but there was still gaps there, and I was still only like able to get jobs that would pay me like $12 an hour, where I would have to be working the majority of the time to be able to afford to live. And I can't do that when I'm a student going to school. So I was just doing what was most readily available, most convenient, and most sustainable for the life that I had at the time. Like, that shit didn't have nothing to do with my morals. The only reason I didn't think, oh my gosh, it's so bad that I'm a stripper, was because I just didn't shit on sex workers. Because I didn't have this thing in my head that said that, oh, sex workers are much, much, much worse than other people, much more evil than other people. No, I was just like, there's a job where I can get paid $400 a night. Obviously, if I'm a student and I want to focus on my work, I'm going to do that one instead of the one where I get $14 an hour and it takes me all week to make $400. It was simple math. And it's not something that I think people really consider very often, the fact that the people that choose to be sex workers often aren't the people that have a lot of options in the first place, right? I feel like a lot of people look at it like someone looked at all of the options in the world, they had nothing but opportunity in front of them, and then chose that one. And I don't say that to shit on people that do sex work. I say that because sex work is so fucking dangerous. Sex work can be so uncomfortable. Like, even if you liked the idea of the sex work, again, men ruining shit, you could love pole dancing. You could go be a sex worker as a pole dancer and hate that shit because of how men will treat you at work. Like, even if you like the idea of it, it's a pretty toxic environment because you do have to serve men in a pretty unfun way sometimes. So that's the tea on my sex work. But moving on to a complete lane change, bruh. My homegirl Rose, she really needed me to talk about the birds. Who's ready to hear about birds? Anybody want to hear about the birds? Well, like I said, put your seatbelt on because I'm gonna be all over the place. And believe it or not, my conversation that I have to bring to you about birds is still related to patriarchy and feminism, because we've been birding for like the past over a month at this point. We've been birding for a while. We've been going on hikes for a while. And something that we've noticed is that even the birds are affected by patriarchy, right? Because tell me why. Have y'all ever seen a female cardinal? Okay, that's one of the most common birds. That's the bird I see all of the time on my hikes. Have y'all seen the cardinals, right? The red ones, the ones that you think of when you think of a cardinal, those are men. Those are males. The ones that are brown, that look like regular ass birds, those are the females. And so what she was ranting to me about one day on our hike, and she asked me to put it into this episode when I told her I was talking about patriarchy, is the fact that even the way that our birds are named is only reflective of like what the males look like. Like we have this bird that we've been obsessed with looking for because it's in its mating season right now in Austin, and it's called the golden-cheeked warbler. It has like these little yellow spots on its cheeks, so it's called golden-cheeked warbler. The females, they don't have any yellow spots on their cheeks. They're just brown. And that's the case for a lot of different birds, because what birds will do is they'll have the males look super flamboyant, super colorful and bright, because the males, their whole job is to attract the female mate. So they want to look really good. They want to really stand out so they can get their little nut in. The females, on the other hand, they have to protect the eggs. A lot of species, some of them do both, but most of the time it's the females doing most of the work of protecting the egg and of even being the ones who get to make the egg in the first place. So nature has done its work to keep them safe by making them look like their environments, making them look brown. And so these men they're more in danger because they're so bright. So like, hey, there's a little balance. But then human men come in with their patriarchy and they name entire species of bird after just what the male looks like. And it really pisses me off. I think it's really unjust. What else can I say about it? I'm sorry, Rose, that's honestly all I have on the matter, is that it really fucking sucks. I didn't research it enough to say more about it, and it's probably gonna piss her off, but she should have came on the podcast. I did invite her. She said she was too scared. So maybe leave a comment encouraging Rose to come talk about the birds herself, because she was much more passionate about it, I promise you. When we were on our hike, she was ranting about it for like 20 minutes. I will say, she told me that she looked through what really pissed her off and what made her go on this rant is that she found a book that I believe she said her uncle had that was talking about like the rainbow of birds, and it had all of the birds in the book in color order. And so that is precisely how she noticed how unfair the naming of birds was, because she was flipping through this color order of the birds, all of these birds that are named after their colors, and she noticed all the bitches were brown, all of them, and none of them getting to be the namesake. So that really sucks. I think that we should be renaming the names of the birds. I think we should also be renaming our spaces outside. I made a little mini vlog while I was on a hike at Barton Creek, and I did research about Barton Creek and found out that William Barton, shitty ass dude, slave owner, he was known as an Indian killer, not calling it Barton Creek anymore. My vote is that we also change that one, name it Blind Salamander Creek, because the blind salamanders live only in St. Edward's Aquifer, which is in Austin and San Marcos. So I feel like it just makes more sense. But yeah, patriarchy even be fucking up the names of things, our thoughts, our names, the words we use, all of it. Another big shout out to Rose. She also suggested that I talk about the work that we do and how that relates to patriarchy. And it's in a very, very interesting and unfortunate way, because the work that we do is with youth that's in the foster care system. And this youth that we work with, they're all victims of like some pretty significant abuse and neglect. And so they end up getting put into foster care. But the youth that we work with in particular, they've usually been in like at least 4 different foster care placements, and oftentimes moved from placements because of behavioral issues that they're having. And then they finally come to where I work, which is a residential treatment center, to get mental health care for their aggression problems. A lot of them often going from foster home to foster home to foster home, to psychiatric hospital for short-term care, to residential treatment center with us. And something that is really interesting about even that environment is that I fully work a pink collar job, right? Like most of the people that I work with, they're women. Yet interestingly, now that I'm thinking about it, like half of the supervisors that we have, they're men. They're all great guys. But even though women are way more abundant in the lower levels, there's a big concentration of men at the upper levels. But that wasn't even the point that I wanted to make. That's just something I noticed as I'm speaking about this. Wowzers. The point I wanted to make is that even our children, who are as young as like 6, exhibit like real effects of the patriarchy in the way that they treat their staff, us that work with them. Because we have a lot of kids where they will witness like domestic violence from their fathers, and then they will come to us and they will treat their female staff so much differently than they treat their male staff. As someone that presents more masculine, I've even noticed me get treated a lot differently than my more feminine presenting counterparts. Even other non-binary coworkers that I have that are more feminine presenting will get treated differently. Smaller coworkers, female coworkers, they'll be harmed way more than me. Someone who is technically also female, but larger, has a deeper voice and a more masculine way that they dress at work every day. I won't get hit as much as these other people that I work with that fully identify as women, use she, her pronouns, dress very femininely, they'll have totally different experiences with these kids because at the age of 6, that's how early these children are being taught concepts of patriarchy and who gets respect and who doesn't, based on some very extreme circumstances. But this effect is still happening to like all 6-year-olds in general, when they see their dads get the final say on things, but not their mom, when they see their mom doing way more work than their dad is. Like, this starts to help them, and I mean work in the home, right? Their mom doing way more chores than their dad is doing. Like, seeing those things, kids are smart, bro. Kids are really smart. And people try to discount kids and say that they don't know anything. I have argued this before, and I'll argue it again. Kids sometimes know more, because what they don't know is all of these, again, the mitote, all of these fake things that we've made up to try and make sense of our world and in turn oppress certain people. A lot of kids don't have that built in them yet. It happens over time, but they'll start to pick up on them. They'll start to notice, and they'll start to comply and do things like what I talked about at work, how they'll listen to men more than they ever listen to women. And I'm sure that's probably part of why a lot of my supervisors end up being male, because they're the ones that have to come in when behavior escalations are getting too extreme and come in to assist. And when a behavioral escalation is getting too extreme with a bunch of women, you can see it like in real time at my work. It's actually like so shocking to witness. Like, a kid will be tearing up an entire room with like 3 women in it, and a man will walk in there and be like, you need to stop. And suddenly now he's done. And suddenly now he's listening. Because at the age of 7 or 8, he's already learned from the behavior of the other men around him that he does not have to listen to women. That shit, it's gotta go. We've gotta get it out of here. But that actually makes me think of too, I saw this video earlier today, right? Because honestly, I feel like my Instagram was listening to my notes app, okay? Because I did write about this first, and then I went on Instagram and I saw a video that kind of correlated to the words I wrote specifically. But I also, while I'm talking about patriarchy and feminism, wanted to talk about the school to prison pipeline and how that relates to twerking, how that relates to patriarchy, and how that relates to feminism. They all kind of tie together in an intersectional way, because what happens with girls for the school to prison pipeline is that a lot of times they get a lot of disciplinary action done to them based on the way that they dress and the way that they look. Their bodies are over-policed more than like girls of other races, Black girls in particular, because for boys, a lot of times it'll be being told that their attitude is too much, and girls suffer the same thing. But girls in particular, Black girls, they'll have way more instances of getting like dress coded. This is a phenomenon that I saw and I experienced as someone that was Black but didn't go to a predominantly Black school. I felt like I got targeted more for dress code. Black women and Black girls will have different types of body types, right? And so I even remember getting told when I was a young girl that like my body, because my body is different, because my butt is big, okay? I was trying to beat around the bush because I'm talking about my child self, but I'm gonna just say it like it is. As a child, I had a large butt. I was told by my parents that I needed to dress in certain ways to cover that, because that's why I was getting dress coded more, and that's why I was getting in trouble, because everybody at my school wore leggings. Everybody did. But when I wore leggings, I got written up for it. I got in trouble for it. My peers didn't though. And my mom literally sat me down and was like, listen, your peers, they don't have butts though. Like those white girls that you're talking about wearing leggings to school and not getting in trouble, they don't have butts. What my mom was communicating is their bodies aren't over-policed and sexualized in the same way that mine is as a Black girl. And what being suspended does to a kid's mind is it sends them messages about who they are and what their worth is, right? So if you're taking a group of Black girls and you are dress coding them for their tops being too tight or their shoulders being out or their leggings way more often than you are white girls or other races of girls, what you're doing is you're subconsciously placing that idea in their head that they are bad, that they're doing bad things, and that there is something wrong with them. And that subconscious idea is gonna like lead into the choices they make and really, really, again, build that mitote in their head that there is something different and wrong about them, and that they need to overcompensate and really be under extra control in comparison to other people in order to be accepted in society. They need to make sure that they're doing more than their peers to hide their body to make sure that they don't get in trouble. And so this Instagram reel that I saw, it was these kids, and I was so proud of them because it was this white girl and she had on this tight tank top and super short, like denim shorts. It's summertime, it's hot. And she was like, this is what I'm wearing to school today. And this black girl behind the camera, she was like, did you get dress coded today? And the girl's like, nope. And I wore it on purpose to see if I would get dress coded. I didn't get dress coded today. And then it turns the camera to like two black girls that are wearing very similar outfits. And then they were like, we've been dress coded in these outfits before, talking about how unfair they think it is. And then they're talking about how they've been dress coded for having their shoulders come out. A black boy walks by and he has on a tank top. His shoulders are out. And he chimes into the video too. And he's talking about, yeah, like this is so unfair. I have my shoulders out. Ain't nobody ever dress coded me. And it's all tied to like a very real sociological phenomenon. It's not some shit I'm pulling out of my butt. Like people that have been inspecting the school to prison pipeline know that like this is how it starts for a lot of black girls in combination with a lot of other factors down to like them being late to school, maybe because their parents are working more and can't get them to school on time. A lot of other different factors leading to them falling into that pipeline from school to prison. But for a lot of black girls, the start to that pipeline is literally something as small as getting dress coded and getting dress coded more often, to the point of maybe even causing frustration that leads to behavioral escalations and more shit that gets them into more trouble. It's not some shit that people really think about when they think about dress codes and they think about how they impact people, but it's like that little stuff that starts when we're in high school that evolves into how we dress and how we carry ourselves as an adult and the ideas that we have about that. Like, I, as a kid, was always someone that pushed back on authority. I never fucked with it. I never really liked when people tried to tell me what I could and couldn't do. So that is a big part of why I did shit like throw ass in my cap and gown, because it was mainly about authority. Yes, it was about celebration. That was really fun for me to do, but it didn't have to be a public spectacle thing. I didn't have to post it on my Instagram. The part where I posted on Instagram was because I knew what I'm doing is going against people's rules over my body. And what I'm saying when I post this is that I just blatantly don't give a fuck. And I think we need a lot more blatant not give a fuckness in our feminism. Honestly, I'm real sick and tired of all of this respectability and all that shit, because at the end of the day, it does not save us, right? Because what black women have is they have the most degrees out of any other demographic. I don't know if y'all knew that, but as of, I think like the past 2 or 3 years, Black women have achieved degrees at a higher rate than any other like gender and racial demographic. Yet Black women still face some of the most significant pay gaps in comparison to women of other races and in comparison to men, including men of the same race, get paid way less. Black women still face some of the highest mortality rates when it comes to childbirth, right? The most in danger, like over 3 times, I believe, more in danger of complications or death than other women of other races, right? Black women are the most common victims of domestic violence, more so than other races. They're kind of almost along the same rates of prevalence as Indigenous women, but they're still very up there, right? All of this while Black women have the highest rates of degrees out of any other racial, gender demographic. And it's because all of that shit, like I said earlier, college being a scam, because none of that shit's gonna save you. At the end of the day, if you're still the most oppressed in society, you're still gonna have all these outcomes because all of these different systems are working in combination to make sure you, as a woman and a Black person, are suffering somehow. So, if I'm knowing that college is a scam, I sure will be throwing my ass in my cap and gown. To celebrate it being grad season again, I might just put it back on and do it for a 3rd time, just for shits and gigs, to be honest. And speaking of Black women, we can finally talk about Thee Stallion and how I feel about her being cheated on, because first of all, yes, I do have a slightly parasocial relationship with that woman, and I think that many people that say that they don't, you're lying. I do have a tattoo inspired by her. It actually matches this hat, I'm noticing. I did not do that on purpose, but she has a track called BITCH. It is a like modern day rendition. Rendition isn't the word I'm looking for, but it's where like an artist takes a song by another artist that's older, uses the same sample, and does it again, but in their way. That's what Megan did on BITCH with the song Nigga by Tupac. And in Nigga, Tupac is talking about how he'd rather be a Nigga than comply. Y'all see how this is all tying together? I'm not gonna lie. I gotta 8 with that. Okay, but he's talking about non-compliance, right, in relationship to blackness, how he'd rather be an Nigga than do this, that, and the third to please a white man, right, or to please a society that's not actually gonna love him, and that he'd rather just be the Nigga that he is and appreciate himself, embrace himself and his culture, than comply and conform. And so I love the track BITCH because Megan, she's doing that, but from a feminist perspective. She's not solely focusing on her blackness, but she's focusing on how she would rather be a BITCH than conform to the whims of a man and do what he wants her to do because he wants her to do it. Or she'd rather be a BITCH than sit around and let a man cheat on her and stick with him for the sake of saving face. Huge anthem. I love it so much. I got a tattoo inspired by it because it came out when I had broken up with my really toxic and abusive ex-boyfriend. It got me through some tough times. I love that track. So yeah, I'm gonna have a parasocial relationship with that woman, basically is what I'm saying. She has carried me through some really deep things and her art is powerful, fantastic. And she's also an amazing advocate for survivors of domestic violence as she is one herself. And so I really wanted to talk about her and her issues with Klay Thompson being the bloc op of the day, of course, because what a lot of people have is takes on the situation that just show the ways that their internalized misogyny, if they're women or femmes, or like their patriarchal beliefs and misogynistic beliefs will like leak out, even when they don't mean it to. And so something that I talked about on my Instagram that was real controversial for some of the girls and that they really weren't getting was that if you say shit like, I can't believe Megan Thee Stallion got cheated on, she's too sexy to be getting cheated on, she's too hot, she's too fine, oh my God, like how could he cheat on her of all people? Or even stuff like, if she can get cheated on, then we're all cooked. Like, there's so much wrapped up in statements like that. First and foremost, and most obviously being pretty privileged, right? And a lot of people in the comment sections of the videos I made about it were able to acknowledge that, right? Like, if you believe that somebody that is super, super attractive, like, should get treated better, or if you think that it doesn't make sense when someone that's super, super attractive gets treated badly, that means that you believe in pretty privilege. Whether you acknowledge it or not, whether you mean to or not, that's what that means. If you didn't believe in pretty privilege, then you would not think shit like, oh, well, if Megan Thee Stallion can get cheated on, then we're all cooked. And I want to say, like, first and foremost, that is not like a call out. It's a call in, right? It's an invitation to think about the way that you respond to certain situations. Because a lot of people were like, well, I didn't do it on purpose. I don't understand why you're mad. I don't understand why you're mad. I'm not mad. I want us to be aware of the way that our thoughts are being formed, what's forming our thoughts, and the ideas that we're expressing when we say them. Because I don't think that anybody believes in pretty privilege on purpose. Actually, I'm gonna run that back. I think some people believe in pretty privilege on purpose, but I think the majority of people are really like well-meaning people that, like everyone else, has grown up in a society that functions off of pretty privilege, right? Like, we don't have actors that look like normal people and don't have hella work done. We have actors that are hopefully probably some of like the best looking people that they can find. I don't know why I said hopefully. I don't have hopes about that, but probably is what I meant. Probably some of the most attractive people that could be found by some talent scouts. And then on top of that, those attractive people get a bunch of treatments done to be even more quote unquote attractive. And then they build like our ideal. They build in us this idea that, oh, all of these people that are beautiful, they have this much better life than like us regular poors do. Right? And so that's what subconsciously builds this idea of pretty privilege. But what I want people to realize is that that idea was entirely manufactured. Like, you didn't naturally wake up one day and be born. Like I said, the kids, they don't have a mitote set up yet, right? Like, they haven't lived in society as much as we have to understand pretty privilege like that. And just as like a whole childhood and a whole upbringing of seeing celebrities be these really attractive people planted that idea in pretty privilege in your head, you can actually reverse it if you're able to notice when you're thinking thoughts that are promoting pretty privilege, like, oh my God, if Megan Thee Stallion gets cheated on, we're cooked. If you can stop yourself and notice like that thought that I'm having is one that promotes pretty privilege, and pretty privilege actually isn't something that I'm that into or that I agree with, even just stopping and noticing that is like one of the first steps in changing that thought pattern. And this is some real like therapy shit. Like the only reason I'm able to connect these, and the only reason why I want to call this out so badly, is because I've had to do lots of therapy work for other forms of toxic thought. Not toxic thought like patriarchy or misogyny, but toxic thoughts like, girl, I want to harm myself because I'm mad. And I've had to notice that thought and think about it and sit on it and then start to change it to like, I want to take care of myself because I'm feeling bad. I want to do this self-care and this and that in order to be like the healthy, sober person that I am today. Like that's a lot of CBT that got done. And I realized like you can do like cognitive behavioral therapy. You can do that behavioral science and that process of thought change with any thought. It's not exclusive to thoughts about addiction or thoughts about self-harm or thoughts about depression or low self-worth. It also includes thoughts about misogyny. So that is one of the main reasons I wanted to call people out about that, is to say like, not that I hate you, not that I think something's wrong with you, not that I think you're not like me, because I still have internalized misogyny that I struggle with, right? But to say that like we all collectively need to do the work to notice when we're thinking and saying things like this and where those thoughts come from, what they do to people, because I won't lie and act like I don't still have to actively fight that like pretty privileged bone in my body. Just like the rest of us, I saw the same actors and actresses that y'all did that would give me these ideas too. But I think we can kind of all build a system. What I hope is that we all build a system of accountability with one another, where we are practicing calling out when we see and hear things that are promoting ideas that we want to leave behind. So that's what I was trying to do when I said that, right? And a lot of people weren't happy about it. A lot of people were mad about it, but I think a lot of people really did receive it well. So I'm really happy about that, because I do think that collectively, like as a community, myself included, we really need to work on like taking our ego out of these really important and really heavy conversations, because all that it does is like really get in the way of us moving forward when we think it's personal and it's about me individual, when really it's about us, all of us, the way that we're all interacting and the way that our interaction affects one another, whether we intend it or not. That was the biggest thing that I was telling people in the comments of that video, is that it's not about intention, it's about impact. So many people, when they say, oh my gosh, like if Megan Thee Stallion got cheated on, we're so cooked, they don't intend to uplift patriarchy. They don't intend to make uglier people seem like they deserve bad fate more. That is exactly the wording that I used, actually, that had so many people rubbed the wrong way. I said, if you say things like Megan Thee Stallion is too bad to be getting cheated on, does that mean that you believe that some women deserve psychological harm more than others, and what makes them deserving of psychological harm is dependent on their pretty privilege? And people were really thrown by that. People were like, oh my God, like nobody was saying anybody deserves psychological harm. And it's like, right, like that wasn't your intention. That's not what you said on the surface. But if you say things like, if this person gets emotionally abused, which, yeah, that's emotional abuse, and we can circle back to that real quick. But if someone gets emotionally abused and they're hot, that means everyone else is screwed, because this person is too hot to be getting emotionally abused. What that sets up is the idea that somebody that's hot does not deserve emotional abuse, and somebody that isn't does. If you say shit like the rest of us are cooked, because that's implying like they should be treated better. If we're not as good as them, we should be treated worse. If they're experiencing psychological abuse and they're better than us, we'll also be experiencing psychological abuse. And so many people thankfully realized that that was the pattern that they were bringing out with their words when they didn't mean to. That is like the most sick and insidious part of misogyny, I think, is that a lot of women have internalized misogyny, and they will say and do things like that without even realizing it. Somebody in the comments pointed out like, oh, but Megan Thee Stallion has all of these lyrics that are like kind of talking about misogyny too, like talking about how she's hotter than this girl or hotter than that girl, or she's still this girl's man. And like, they thought they were bringing that up as a gotcha, but it almost kind of served the point even more, is that we all have some of this internalized misogyny that we need to work on. Even people that are as great of like domestic violence victim advocates of Megan Thee Stallion, she still has lyrics that are guilty of perpetuating certain like misogynistic beliefs. I'm sure I've probably said things that are guilty of perpetrating misogynistic beliefs. Shit, I introduced my boyfriend to bell hooks, and he read those books harder than me and will call me out when I'm saying shit that is not as feminist as it could be, right? Like, we all have some growing to do and some work to do. So I do think that that is something that I want y'all to carry with you after you listen to this episode, is to think about, like, when you notice yourself thinking things, kind of give a pause and stop and think about, like, well, where the fuck did that come from? Who put that in my head? Because unfortunately, in our society, a lot of times the answer is a misogynistic man that was in control of the media that you had access to, the books you got to read. And it's not something, honestly, that you'll be able to notice very well until you really start engaging with feminist media that introduce you to alternatives. So that's why I want to like poke people a little bit and push them to think of those alternative thoughts. And so my reading recs for you, my homework for you to go towards those alternatives is, first of all, bell hooks, like I mentioned. Love her down. She has a lot of things outside of feminism specifically, but I think that's one of the main subjects of a lot of her different writings. But also there's this book that I really, really liked that I read in college called The Push Out, The Criminalization of Black Girls' Bodies, I think. It was one of the super, super cool academic books with a really long title. But that one is an ethnography that follows this girl that was put into juvie because she was experiencing behavioral problems, right, at school, because people were bullying her and making fun of her, slut-shaming her for the things that she was doing. Whole time, these people didn't know that this like 15-year-old girl was a victim of sex trafficking. And sex trafficking is something that can look a lot of different ways, fly under the radar a lot of times. Like, not every girl that's being sex trafficked is pulled out of her community and nobody ever sees her again. Oftentimes, the case does not look like that, and that's why people get away with it more often. So it's a really, really good book that talks from her perspective a lot. It uses interviews. She's 15 in the book, I believe. But that was a book that really like opened my eyes to what I was talking about earlier, like the realities of sex work, who does it without consent or will. Oftentimes that's the case in like strip clubs in general too. Like, back when I was a stripper, dude, they used to have the like signs about how to like call for help if you're being trafficked in the bathroom, in the locker room, like everywhere, all over every single club. Because a lot of those girls that I worked with, and the really unfortunate part is like you don't get to know with everybody, but a lot of those girls that I was working with probably didn't want to be there by their own choice. They were probably engaging in sex trafficking. A lot of them probably being sex trafficked, and they didn't even fully know they were being sex trafficked. Like, that was one of the sickest parts, I think, of working in a strip club at the same time that I'm taking like these women and gender studies classes, and I'm learning all of these things about human trafficking. I literally took a course on it as I'm working in the strip club, and I'm learning that, like, damn, a lot of these girls that have guys that they call their boyfriend or their P, that's their sex trafficker, their pimp, right? But it's so normalized, and that was unfortunately the case for the girl in the book, that people don't really think twice about it. So I think it's a really good read. That's my reading recommendation. My listening recommendation for y'all is a few, okay? First of all, wait, time out. I didn't even clarify how cheating is emotional abuse. And I said that we would circle back to that. The circle is complete. Now we're back. I remembered. You're welcome. Cheating as emotional abuse is an idea that I was introduced to in college. I was in this org called, I can't remember actually if it was Women in Psychology, an org I was in before I came out, or if it was NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. I was in both of those orgs, don't remember which one it was, but a professor at UT, whose name I didn't write down, I can't remember, I'm so sorry, she gave a lecture basically for our org about the research that she was doing on interpersonal relationship violence and how interpersonal relationship violence had such a significant effect on the brain. Like in this lab, they were doing like brain scans and all of that stuff, neuroscience work, how emotional abuse in the form of infidelity had a very similar effect on the brain and the trauma regions within the brain as physical abuse. Like she was basically arguing with her research, and her research was in the process of proving this, her lab was proving that someone being the victim of infidelity, especially repeated infidelity, has like some of the same mental, emotional scars as someone that has physically been hit. And her argument was that it is such a grave betrayal, it is such a grave break in trust, and it is such a grave break in the sense of self of a person, because a person's sense of self is attached to the relationships they have with other people, that it really truly breaks someone. And I think that cheating is like one of the forms of abuse that is way too normalized in our society, like spanking kids. Like that's just something that we think isn't that serious, isn't that bad, when really like the neuroscience is suggesting otherwise. I will go back and Google before I upload this what that doctor's name was, so that you can actually look into her research and her lab, because I do think that she's correct. And so I, till the day I DIE, will continue to say that cheating is emotional abuse, especially as someone that I was the victim of serial cheating over and over again. Okay, I literally had a crash out so bad that I was in the mental hospital over that shit. You can't tell me that that is not emotional abuse. It genuinely can create so much like paranoia in a person. The loss of sense of self is so heavy, because people that get cheated on chronically, you could have a homie that gets into a really bad relationship, gets treated on chronically, and you feel like you don't even recognize that person anymore. They are acting completely different because the person that they were is being deteriorated by abuse. So yeah, I do think that we already know that Megan Thee Stallion was a victim of domestic violence, right? With the things that happened with her, with Tory Lanez, and with her being shot. But I do think that this is like another layer to it. Even if it was just a one-time cheating situation, this is a celebrity whose life is under a microscope. This isn't a regular person that just like can experience being cheated on one time like anybody else. Like, no, her being cheated on is a story that I'm sitting here talking about on my podcast right now. Like, that's certainly going to do some emotional damage to somebody's psyche. And I really hope that she has like a good team of healers and care workers around her to get through that. But on her music though, the thing that helped me get through when I was going through it, BITCH is something that you must listen to, as well as Girls in the Hood. I love Girls in the Hood. It is such an anthem. And I really do think that it encompasses the themes of today's episode. Okay, so you can listen to today's episode, listen to Girls in the Hood, and get back to me on how you think those two correlate. Also, the song Girl Get Up by Doechii. Listen. Doechii, the feminist that you are, the queer feminist icon that you are, I love that track. I can't even think of the specific lyrics that made me want to include it, but I was actually listening to it before I pulled up, and I was like, this is female empowerment. This is feminism. I love this. So I need y'all to listen to that one too. I didn't find a way to like weave this in the episode that made sense, but before I go, I just want y'all to know, on top of all of everything else I've said about patriarchy and feminism, if for some reason you still need like a concrete illustration that misogyny and patriarchy are very real and that there is a dire need for feminism, I need you to look at the videos of the shooting that happened with Donald Trump at that damn dinner and just watch how the Secret Service covered every single man and got them to safety. And the wives and the women there with them were there just like looking around trying to figure out what the hell they were supposed to do to be safe, because no Secret Service were even covering them. They did not have security detail. They did not have safety. They were literally crawling on the floor confused. And it's not funny. It's not, but it kind of is, because it kind of just very well illustrates the point that respectability politics will not save you. Being an achieved, accomplished woman with dignity, quote unquote, won't save you. These are some of the most pure women in the country, right? Dating fucking JD Vance and all of these other men. And they still, at the end of the day, are still women. So even in a shooting situation where people are trying to actively take their lives, they've got to crawl on the floor and figure it out themselves when they have the most expensive and experienced security detail in the country. Isn't that a perfect example? But with that being said, guys, that is everything I wanted to yap about today. I feel like my brain was moving so fast, so if that didn't make sense, I'm sorry, but y'all already know I have ADHD, so if you make too many comments about it, especially negative ones, that's actually ableism. Sorry to break it to you, love. Don't do that. I really enjoyed talking about this subject. I will probably talk about it more in the future because it's really important to me, especially the sex work part. I'll probably have a whole episode dedicated to that. So if that's something you'd be interested in seeing, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know what other subjects you're interested in seeing as well. Do your homework. Okay, y'all are really bringing out the teacher in me. I really need you to read Push Out. I really need you to listen to these songs. Definitely listen to the songs because it's not as much work. Okay, you have no excuse not to do it and come back to me and tell me how you feel about it. If you don't, I'm actually genuinely going to be offended. I'm going to feel like you showed up to class and didn't do your homework. So do that. But love you guys so much. Thank you so much for listening, for supporting the pod, and for appreciating me and my voice. Please listen on Spotify, Substack, rate us 5 stars, maybe even give me a little money if you feel so kind. Wow, that's crazy. Shout out to the 3 of you that did that. Also follow my Instagram and TikTok. All of it is at Angel from the Block. I will see you guys next time. Bye. Damn.